Wait, is that it? Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, well, I guess that makes sense. All right, great. We did it. All right, let's talk about the ins and outs of Gears of War 4, shall we? Gosh, I haven't given this a lot of thought until just this now, but I do have some things to say. So my Gears of War experience, I'm playing them in order, but I'm playing like one a year. So my lore's not really up to snuff. So I remembered the broad strokes of the story, but there were a couple of things I had to look up, like details about the swarm and stuff, like the enemies in this game, stuff like that. But my journey was that the first game blew me away. I loved the first game. I thought it was amazing, even though I didn't play it until it had already been out for 15 years. And then I thought Gears of War 2 was more of the same, and it was still good, but it didn't really give me anything new, so I was like, oh, well, I felt like I was playing DLC or something. Like, 2 was good. It was good. It had some interesting additions to the plot, but the actual gameplay didn't go anywhere different to me, so I thought it was... And I didn't like some of the vehicle missions, but I still thought it was good. I just didn't think it was quite as good as the first one. And then the third one, I thought it was good again, but, like, it was all action. The first one had this, like, mood to it where it was almost a horror game at times, and it was very atmospheric, where you had to like hide under the light shades and like the lamps and stuff in the first game, and there were like all those like horror type elements with those bat type creatures, and there was a lot of horror type stuff in the first game, a lot of tension, and then the second game didn't have much of that at all, and then the third game didn't have any. It was like all out Terminator 3, and I still thought it was okay, but I didn't think it was nearly as good. And then I played Judgment, and I actually thought Judgment I enjoyed better than 3, but it still was just more action and didn't really go anywhere different for me. I mean, there were some places interesting in the places that it went in the story-wise, but as far as the gameplay and as far as like the tone of it, I felt like it was getting kind of vanilla. This game brought it back to what I loved about the first one. There's a lot more atmosphere in this game. I think the graphical jump, the clear technological jump, has something to do with it. It's just easier for these newer games to pull off tone and atmosphere with the lighting and the sound and just the way that everything looks and feels. So I think that was part of it, but it was also directorially. There's a lot more of like where it almost goes into horror a little bit. Never really. None of these games ever really go into horror, but there's this gore horror, action horror, cosmic element to it, like that a body horror type element that it goes into from time to time, where there is like some tension and things get quiet a little bit and things get kind of spooky. This game started to do that again, and I really, really appreciated that. I thought that was really well done and very good. I also thought that the way that the story went was interesting. I'm not going to spoil anything, but like, there's a lot of different enemy types in this game than what I'm used to dealing with. I think that was another thing that was kind of stagnant about the second and third. There were a couple of additions, but it was a lot of the same enemies over and over again in the first 3 games in Judgment. And so this game took some different directions with that, and I really, really liked that too. I thought that helped keep things fresh. Obviously, the way that the game looks is much, much better. It's just a newer game. It's an 8th generation console game. It's now instead of 7th suddenly, so it just looks and sounds a lot better. That wasn't lost on me either. Overall, I think this is one of my favorites. I don't know if I liked it as much as 1, but I really liked it. I think it's on that level, honestly. I think it's about on the level of the first one. I really, really enjoyed it. I thought the story was good. The way that the story beats worked from act to act made sense. They flowed well. I just thought it had good pacing. The game doesn't require. The game suggests that you play it on hardcore, which almost no game ever does. Usually normal is the core experience. I usually try and go for whatever the core experience is, which is normally normal. But this game said the way it was meant to be played was hardcore. So we played it on hardcore, and I think that did make it better because it was actually pretty reasonable. Toward the end, it did, in the second half, it did get pretty hard, but it was tense. It was enjoyable. There was a lot of tension. I liked that. It was good. As far as critiques, You know, I really don't have much. I think that the cover system still has its hiccups, where you're in cover, but you're still getting shot, even though you're not being flanked, or like there was definitely the situation where I'm trying to run, because taking cover and run are the same button. You run, and then anytime you're within 10 feet of any cover, you just go into cover. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm in a hurry. I'm trying to run. There was a lot of that. The cover system's still wonky. It's there are games that I think have done a really good job with how the cover system works, like The Division, especially The Division 2. I don't think, even though this game inspired that system, I think that there are some games that have done it better. So I didn't love that, but I think this game, I was lost a couple of times, because I think this game just assumes that you're pretty fresh on the lore and everything. And I was not. There's literally like a year between games when I've played them. I've really spaced this franchise out. So the game, there's some story beats that happen, especially toward the end, where they show you something, or you're introduced to someone or something, and you're supposed to know what's going on because of some random stuff that happened in Gears of War 2 or something. And I did not. And I looked it up a couple of times, and a couple of times I didn't bother. Is that really a knock on the game? Not necessarily. I don't know that that's an objective complaint. It's just because maybe they expect like the real fans of this game are going to go back and replay them in anticipation of the newer ones, or read the wiki or something, and I didn't do any of that. But I was lost a couple of times. Maybe a one line in there could have eased things a little bit, like, oh yeah, this happened when so-and-so, like just a throwaway line might have helped. Maybe not, I don't know. But it did affect my enjoyment, because I didn't understand a little bit, because I didn't understand what was going on all the time. But that's really it. And these are nitpicks. At the end of the day, I really, really enjoyed this game. It felt to me like a return to form of it felt more like I was playing the first game than 2, 3, or Judgment. For the first time, I felt like there was like a real sense of atmosphere, and like a foreboding tension, like a real bordering on horror tone at times in this game. And it wasn't just balls to the wall horror, or balls to the wall action from start to finish, like 2, 3, and Judgment felt like to me. And again, my memory of those games is, a little shoddy, but that's what I remember. That was my takeaway. I think this game really did a good job of bringing it back to why I love the original game. So I really appreciated that, and I had a great time with this game. I really did. All right, last couple of things. The bottom center of the screen says that we have beaten 75 games in 2024 and 522 since we started doing this in 2020. Those numbers need to be updated. We have now beaten 76 games in 2024 and 523 since we started doing this in 2020. Let's go. All right. Last order of business, Gears of War 4. It's been fun. I really did have a great... I shouldn't wait so long to play these games. Like, literally, 6 months is one thing. That's about how long it usually takes me to circle around to a franchise I'm actively playing, but a year is too long. But Gears of War, it was... oh shit, I started it again. Don't do that. It has been a blast. I have really, really had a great time with you, but we are now going to delete you from our console and never play you again. Bye! Thank you! Appreciate ya.